Welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture, and today's lecture in continuation with the series on Indian sociological tradition. I am going to talk about an important contribution of Indian sociologist G.S. Ghurye, discussing his work Caste and Race in India, and try to understand how he gives us a comprehensive understanding of caste in Indian society, and also help us to understand the relation between caste and race. So, to begin with, we like to understand that he gives us an Indological comparative and a historical approach. Indological in the sense that he was making reference to large amount of existing literature in terms of the Vedic text and other religious texts. Comparative in the sense that he was comparing Indian society with other societies and also comparing India within North and South and so on. So, unlike his contemporary, he does not glorify or condemn caste system. So, when we kind of look into the ways in which caste system was understood or studied, we see one class of thinkers which comes in from the Western perspective, who would look at the caste system critically and say that it is exploitative, it is kind of based on inequality. And then we have the other school of thought, large number of thinkers who could kind of glorify caste system in terms of considering it as an occupational group for a functional maintenance of social order. So, Ghurye is doing neither. He is neither glorifying nor is he critical of it. What he does is he gives us a very descriptive understanding of caste as it was practiced by the people of India and how. So, one is descriptive account of as it existed in the 1920s, and the second is how over the period of time as historical changes take place, the system or the caste system underwent change. So, what were the changes which happened over a passage of time? So, Ghurye considered it unfortunate that caste system was understood in terms of Brahminic domination, and he has gone through a process of fusion and fusion in different ways in Indian history. Fusion and fission are concepts which helps us to understand the transformation or social change taking place. Fusion is when two ideas or two group kind of merges, and fission is when they kind of subdivides or kind of breaks up. So, fusion and fission has been taking term in terms of social organization, in terms of religion, in terms of cultural assimilation, and this is very important to understand the transformation that has happened in the Indian society. So, when we look into the contribution of G.S. Ghurye, it is very important to kind of understand his argument of the origin of caste system. And to recall, Ghurye critically evaluates Risley's theory or racial theory to understand the origin of caste system. So, according to Risley, racial features and the striking differences are fundamental factors for the origin of caste system in India. So, the racial feature that Risley is talking about is in terms of the physical attributes, in terms of the color of the skin or in terms of the length of the nose and the other fact. And therefore, it was kind of argued that those who were on the upper side, that is the Brahmins, were fairer in scale and they had a different national index, and on that basis he will give us a sevenfold classification of the society. And these sevenfold types which he is kind of giving us, number one is Turco-Iranian or Baluchistan and Northwest frontier. So, these are people who are geographically located in this part of the second is Indo-Aryan of Kashmir, Punjab and Rajputana. The third is Mongoloid type of Himalayas, Nepal, Assam and Burma. Fourth is Dravidian types of Ganga, Adras, Hyderabad and central India. Fifth is Dravidian of UP, Bihar and Ceylon. Sixth, Manglo-Dravidian of Lower Bengal and Orissa. And seventh, Sikto-Dravidian of Western India. So, we see there is a kind of a very clear mapping of in terms of the caste division that he gives us. So Risley was of opinion that the caste varies in social ranking according to their respective average nasal index. So the kind of ranking into the Brahmin, Vaishyas and Shudras was dependent on the nasal index. Ghurye is critical of his classification, and he kind of gives us a new revised classification. He excludes Turco-Iranian type as he believes it lies outside the cultural boundaries of India. So he is making a classification which is more territorial, more geographical, and he's talking only about the India and not talking about the outsiders. So Ghurye gives us six categories of the population, and these are Indo-Aryan, Pre-Dravidian, Dravidia, the Western, the Munda and the Mongoloid. These are again based on the geographical location. So the first is this whole idea of Risley's theory, which is critical, and he tells us that this racial theory is kind of limited in certain ways, but it helps us to understand the classification of Indian society. Another theory which influenced Ghurye's understanding was the Aryan invasion theory. So people calling themselves Arya, they started coming into India through northwest frontier borders somewhere about 2000 BC. In certain texts it's mentioned at 2500 BC. So those who entered India carried with it the early Vedic religion. The Vedic religion is basically the Hindu religion, and the Brahminical variety of the Indo-Aryan civilization developed because of these people inhabiting this territorial area in the Gangetic plain. So north of India became Indo-Aryan Brahminical society, where the Vedic religion or the largely the Hindu religion was kind of practiced. Now these inhabitants, since majority of them were followers of Hindu religion, they started considering themselves as moral guardian, as legislator, and they started considering themselves as superior to those who were already there, and started following a theory of kind of keeping themselves separate from the local population. So these rules of endogamy, that is not marrying outside your group, was formulated. One of the reasons also why it kind of emerged was to maintain the racial purity. So endogamy as a rule of marriage which kind of states that individuals should not marry outside one's group is kind of basically an idea which tells you that if you are born into a superior group, if you are a fair skin or you have certain kind of physical attribute, if you kind of marry someone from the lower group, you will lose out those. So endogamy was basically a rule which supported the maintenance of racial purity. So when we come into the post-Vedic period, we see that these marriage rules, that is the endogamy, becomes very rigid. So there was no question of the Indo-Aryans marrying outside their own group, and there was a kind of a very distinct separation of the two groups on the lines of marriage. As a result, numerous mixed and a group of outcasts newly came into existence. In the same period, the Sudras was also contrasted with a Dvija because he was not required to undergo the initiation ceremony. So, besides marriage, the other social practice which comes in is the sacred thread ceremony, which is a cultural practice, majorly by the Brahmins and the Vaishyas, and that is it's considered as a twice born ceremony, because once you kind of wear that sacred thread ceremony, you become a legitimate member of the Brahmin community. So therefore it's called twice born sacred ceremony. But this practice or the social cultural practice was restricted only to the Indo-Aryan and was not allowed to the other category. So the other category were considered as subordinate, and because they did not undergo this ceremony. So this post-Vedic period, caste becomes more kind of stringent, and it becomes an important factor for regulating social life of the Hindus. Now, the third theory, which is also very important to understand caste system and its origin, is the occupational theory. In 1851, Denzil Ipston, in his census report of Punjab, proposed the theory of occupation and religion. he emphasized that the whole basis of caste is diversity of occupation. In this theory, he emphasized that the occupational diversity was the sole cause of the existence of caste, as many occupationally specialized groups were required to carry out different occupation and thus perpetuated in the society. So, the occupational division is very kind of a clear understanding where the Brahmins were supposed to do the religious tasks, reading texts, performing rituals and so on. The Kshatriyas were supposed to be the warriors who could be going for battles and wars. The Vaishyas were the individuals who were engaged in kind of occupation and business, and then you had the Shudras, which would be kind of considered as doing the less important work. So, this entire classification of the caste system in the four group is considered as an occupational division, and they said that there was a kind of an interdependent relation which could kind of be very harmonious for the maintenance of social order. But again, when we look into this whole idea of the occupational division, and there are kind of scholars who kind of gives us the argument that the occupational division in terms of different occupation being given to different groups were kind of okay, but then the denial of resources, the denial of entitlements to one group because they were doing certain kind of occupation was problematic, and that kind of led into appropriation or exploitation of the Shudras by the Brahmin caste. Then, when we look into the racial theory, because Ghurye makes a reference to this, we kind of come at an understanding that the caste system came into existence due to the clash of culture and the contact of races. The Aryan came to India as conquerors because of their better complexion, physical appearance and built up of the body in comparison to the non-Aryan. The Aryan placed themselves as a superior race over the non-Aryans, and that is why we'll soon kind of understand that caste was considered as an extension of the race system. So, we see this distinction between the Aryan as a superior race versus non-Aryan as an inferior, which later on gets kind of organized into the caste system. So, Risley's correlation between race and caste. In many cases, he admitted that the fact that some aboriginal priests had gained recognition as Brahmin, and aboriginal chieftains, and in some cases aboriginal tribes as well as foreign racial groups entered within the folds of Hindu religion and constituted themselves in the caste of Hindu, and the same people succeeded in achieving the rank to a higher caste. So, this was entire kind of a situation where it was this coming in of outsiders were the scope was there. So, people kind of were aware of the benefits of being in the higher group, and therefore were able to penetrate themselves up the ladder, and those who were left behind were kind of part of the lower caste. So, when we come into the racial theory, it gives us an idea that caste is a product of race, and that has already been discussed that Aryans who came in as warriors kind of differentiated themselves from the non-Aryan in terms of their colors. Aryan society also practiced different kind of occupations which were allocated to different individuals and family. On the basis of the occupational caste, names were allocated to different groups. The Shudras were excluded from religious and social activities of the Aryan. The Aryans did not allow them to participate in Indo-Aryan social activity, and from here caste originates. So, that is that coming in of a racial type, they kind of dividing occupation among themselves and deciding not to give a particular task, that is religious task, to the Shudras, who were then excluded, and slowly and gradually they would be marginalized and they would then become the subordinate category. So, caste originated from race and occupation stabilized it. When caste is diffused from one area to another, it negotiates with cultural environment and ecology. As a result, people belonging to a given caste follow different food rules, occupational pattern and behavior. This talks about the variance, that though the notion or the idea of pollution and purity is kind of a very universal idea, but because they are kind of also dependent on the environment and ecology, the application of the rules kind of differ according to the territorial area. When we try to understand caste system, it is important to understand how Ghurye kind of considered caste as being derived from Varna system. The Varna system is a fourfold division of the Indian society into the in the Vedic age, and here when we refers to the Vedic age, there is no mention of the fifth category, which is the untouchable. There is only reference to the four, and this classification is basically done on the basis of the color of the skin, which I have already said that the Aryans were fairer in scale and they were kind of dominate, considered as the Brahminical, and those who were darker in complexion were the Dasas, and they were kind of considered into the lower category. Ghurye kind of reiterates the racial interpretation of Varna as color, and the idea that Dasas described by the Aryans were the dark and snub-nosed natives they encountered when they entered India. So here when we look into the Varna theory, which is based on the color of the skin, it makes reference to the race. So the Varna can be also considered as a racial categorization, which is to a large extent applicable in understanding the caste system. Then the third instance, after looking into caste and race, caste and Varna system, Ghurye throws light on caste and kinship. The relation between caste and kinship system in India is kind of a very comparative study, because a large number of scholars which we will be looking into it will tell us that the relation between caste and kinship varies from one geographical area to the other. So, there is a different relation in North India to South India and other parts of the India, but there are certain universal fact, and here when we look into the study of caste and kinship by Ghurye, he emphasizes on two important points. One, the kin and caste networks in India had parallel in some other societies also, so it was not a unique or exclusively an Indian phenomena. The kinship and caste in India served in the past as integrative framework. So, the kind of was an idea that if we were following the rules of marriage and kind of maintaining the racial purity, would it integrate the members of a particular caste or a particular race into one community. The relation between caste and kinship is very close, because exogamy in a society is largely based on kinship, either real or imaginary. The effective unit of caste, subcaste, is largely constituted of kinsmen. So, these two accept a point, that is the rule of marriage, whether it's endogamy and exogamy, is kind of regulates the caste system. So, who you marry, whom you don't marry is on the basis of the caste that you belong. And it's not the, as I already said in the beginning, it is not the fourfold Varna which is important, it is the Jati, which is the functional unit of caste, at the level of which the marriage rules are negotiated, and when these marriage rules are negotiated, it implies that it creates a kind of a kins group. So, for Ghurye, there are three types of marriage restrictions in our society which shapes the relation between caste and kinship. And these rules are endogamy, exogamy and hypergamy. Exogamy can be divided further into two, spinda or prohibited degree of skin and sept or gotra exogamy. So, the exogamy basically means that you marry outside your group, and since the classification of the caste system is at various level, so at one level we divide into the four Varna, but as I already said earlier, when we divide it into the four Varna, it is endogamy. Then at the level of the sub class, it is kind of sapinda, and then at the level of subdivision, it's a level of gotra exogamy. Gotra in English would be lineage. So, all members who share the same blood are kind of considered as siblings and therefore are prohibited from marriage. The rule of hypergamy means that there was a practice where the women were kind of given in marriage to the group which was higher in status. So the groom would have been of higher status and the women of a lower status. This was again to maintain the purity of the group. The Gotra and the kin categories of Indo-European culture, which systemize the rank and the status of the people. These categories were derived from the rishis of the past. So, they are also theories which will kind of tell us that the rishis or the in the past were our ancestors, and every caste kind of originating from one particular rishi or the who could be kind of considered as the original founder, and the gotra of that group is known by the name of that rishi. So, in India, this ritual aspect of caste is very important. Descent has not always been traced to the blood tie. So, many a time this relation with the ancestor or the rishi is fictitious, because we don't really know. There is no method by which we can actually trace our origin to that rishi, but through mythology, through oral folk tradition, it gets handed down, and people kind of believe that so and so rishi was the founder of the particular caste. The lineage were often based on spiritual descent from sages of the past. Now, we look into the features. Ghurye gives us 6 features of caste system, and these are, if we can look into this diagram which says segmentation, commensality, hierarchy, civil and religious disabilities, privilege and fixed occupation. So, when we look into segmentation, segmentation means the society is divided into small segments, so or compartments. So, the society is compartmentalized. Each group has its own functions, its own community, and it has its own occupation. And this is a horizontal compartmentalization. It is only a matter of grouping. It is not a question of labeling. And the other thing which is very important of caste system is that membership is prescribed. That is, once you are born into a group, you are prescribed the membership of that particular cause. The other status is achieved status. So, class is basically an achieved status, and caste is an ascribed status. That is a status that you get on the basis of your birth. Caste system, the segmentation also implies that each caste has its fixed role and a fixed status, which kind of remains more or less kind of rigid. But then we also have theorization by other scholars who will talk about mobility within caste system. But Ghurye's theory of caste system tells us that caste is fixed role, status, and they are kind of a very rigid system. The other feature of caste system that Ghurye tells us is hierarchy, and in my lecture I have made reference to these 4 categories, and each of these 4 categories, that is the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishyas and Shudras, have a specific occupation, and dependent on the occupation they have a status in the society. The next is civil and religious disabilities and privileges. Now, this is where caste system becomes very important, because here we are making reference to the untouchable. Basically, it was the lower caste, because of the occupation of doing cleaning the task, doing the dirty tasks. So, they were not allowed to enter the temples. They were not allowed to take water from the public wells, and this was on the ground of the notion of pollution and purity. This idea of pollution and purity is very essential to understand caste system, because if the Brahmin came in touch with the Shudra, he was supposed to be polluted, and therefore the Shudras were denied entry into the public spaces. They were not even allowed to kind of enter into educational institution, and lot of restrictions were there. So, that denial of resources or the ascription of disability based on the caste system is something which is problematic, and which kind of receives a lot of critical analysis. And we see that in India a lot of reforms have happened, lot of social reform, religious reforms have happened, and lot of changes kind of has happened. Now we don't kind of see this kind of religious disability in a very prominent way, but yet at an unconscious level, many are still conscious about it, and there are certain instances where we hear or read in media where the untouchables or the people of the Dalit community are subject to violence and other kind of disabilities. The next feature of caste system that Ghurye gives us is restriction on food, drink and social intercourse, that is the rules of commensality, where people were not interdining. If you were from a Brahmin community, would not sit and eat with a member of the untouchables, and there were no question of intermarriages between upper caste and lower caste. So there was a very strict role of commensality. Endogamy, I have already discussed throughout my lecture that it is a rule which tells you not to marry outside your group. So you marry within members of your own caste. The next feature of caste system is lack of unrestricted choice of occupation. So basically, when we do a kind of a common or laymansical understanding of caste system, the first thing that comes in mind is that caste is a closed group. When we say caste is a closed group, implies that every caste has its own exclusive occupation which cannot be changed. So if you are born into a Brahmin, you are supposed to become a priest, and so forth. Therefore, it's kind of, there is no possibility of choice. There is no kind of shift from one to the other. But again, this is something which is written in 1920s and 30s. Lot of changes have happened, legislative changes have happened. There have been protective discrimination guaranteed to every citizen of Indian society, and now we have members from every caste community participating in secular life without being conscious of their caste identity. The last is that all castes, they kind of maintain their supremacy. This was a time when the caste system was very strictly ordered and rigidly followed. So the upper caste enjoyed the privilege of doing only worship and clean job, and the lower caste were doing dirty works like sweeping bathroom, washing clothes, scavenging, etc., and therefore have been clubbed into that category. Now, if you look into quickly into compare the Risley and Ghurye in order to have a very holistic understanding of caste and race, we see according to Risley, human beings can be divided into the seven caste according to the color of the skin, skull length, nose, and everything. Ghurye critiques this, and he kind of says that it is a Western or an Orientalist perspective, and he gives his own six-fold classification. When we look into the method, we see that Ghurye follows anthropometric, whereas Ghurye has a very anthropological understanding, and he critiques and argues that it was not important to take into the account physical attributes for the whole of the India. It was only applicable to part of North India where caste system was rigid and Hindu religion was strong, and therefore they kind of differs in terms of the spread of the caste system in the entire country. Then caste, as we have gone through the lecture, we have seen that it according to Ghurye, caste is Indo-Aryan and the lower caste is the non-Indo-Aryan, and we have understood the theory of caste as given by Professor G.S. Ghurye in terms of segmentation, hierarchy, the denial of civil rights, and endogamy. So this racial purity theory, which describes the rule of marriage and the rest, helps us to understand the caste system in India, and therefore it can be kind of argued that caste system kind of is a system which was based, Ghurye gives us a functional understanding, and that it had a very close linkage with race. So in order to kind of have a more comprehensive understanding of G.S. Ghurye's book, these are the references which has been prescribed. Professor G.S. Ghurye's own work, Caste and Race in India. Carol Upadhyay has given a very good commentary on the life and work of Ghurye. Then we also have a text by S.K. Praramik, which is Sociology of G.S. Ghurye. There is a book by Nagla, which is Indian Sociological Thought, and there's also a book called A.R. Mobeen, The Legacy of G.S. Ghurre, Centennial Festschrift. If you kind of go through this book, you will have a very good idea and understanding of the text, caste and race in India. With this, I come to an end of today's lecture. Thank you.